You're listening to the Small and Supercharged podcast, episode 60 with Ria Freeman. Now, this is one that I've kind of thought about doing, but actually I think it's really important to do it. If you've been listening for a while, you will know that I am really passionate about people working together, particularly riders, influencers, bloggers, vloggers working together with brands in a lovely way. And in order for that to work well, they both need to work together, understand the rules of the game, respect each other, and so much else. But on today's episode, I'm going to talk about 6 reasons to say no to a brand. So this is a good episode if you are an influencer, if you'd like to be an influencer, if you are a rider, a blogger, a vlogger, anyone who is in a position where they are likely to be approached by brands about working together with them. So this episode I think is really good for those people, but I also think it's a good one for brands because if you are approaching people, you want to make sure that they're going to say yes, or you want to at least, stack the odds in your favour so you think they are likely to say yes to your request. And I'm not saying that these are the only 6 reasons to say no to a brand, but I think there's 6 pretty strong reasons to say no to a brand. And therefore, if you are a blogger or a vlogger or an influencer, I'm just going to use the term influencers because otherwise a lot of this time is going to be taken up with me whittering on about all the different connotations. But when I say an influencer, I mean somebody who is the kind of person who will be approached to work with brands and promote them. So let's just have that as a standard thing. So we want people to work together well, and there are more than 6 reasons why you shouldn't be working with specific brands or why brands shouldn't be working with specific influencers. But I wanted to highlight 6 reasons to say no to a brand, particularly if you are an influencer. That was quite an intro. I hope you're still with me. So the first one, it's going to be obvious. You don't use the brand's products. So this sounds obvious, and indeed it is obvious. But if you don't use the brand's products, you don't have any desire to use the brand's products, maybe you use a competitor's product and you're really happy with, you really need to think about whether you should say yes to the brand. Now, if you are not happy with a competitor's product, if you are looking to move on, if it's a new brand you haven't heard of before, if it's a brand you haven't heard of before, then that doesn't mean that you should say no. But perhaps what it does mean is that you should say, yes, you'd be interested, but not in a way that you're going to start yelling about your association, your connection straight off the bat. Because if you're wanting to promote something that you really love to your fans and followers, you need to make sure you actually do really love it. So this might be a reason to say no altogether. So if you don't use the brand, and that's a conscious choice of yours, you have picked a competitor's products. You are paying money to use a competitor's products because you like the product. Maybe you're even working with a competitor and you get approached by a competitor. Crikey, I've said competitor a lot. That is a good reason to say no to a brand. It doesn't mean you have to, but it's a really strong reason to go, actually, you know what, I'm quite happy with the situation at the moment. Thanks so much for your interest. If the situation changes, I'll let you know. I really appreciate you getting in touch. I should say as well, with all of these points, there's no need to be rude about it. People don't align with everybody, and that's absolutely fine. If everyone was the same, it'd be really, really boring. So always be polite when you say no, but that's a really solid reason to say no to working with a brand, that you don't use the products. The second one is that you don't like the brand's ethos, the way of being, or its views. Now this sounds a bit deep, but stick with me here. So when you have any kind of following, I think when you have any kind of following, you have a real responsibility to that following, and you develop them, as in you grow and develop that following in line with the content you're putting out there. So your beliefs, your passions, your this, your that. And of course, there'll be people in your following who don't align with absolutely everything you say or do. So one subject that would be a really, again, this is like a kind of a contentious one, would be something like hunting or shooting or wearing fur or they'll be the main ones. I mean, there's loads. If you have got a following that's really passionate about vegan food, vegan lifestyle, and you start promoting meat, that's a bit left field, but you know what I mean. So your following will largely grow in line with the content you put out there. So if you are anti-hunting, anti-shooting, anti-fur, and a brand approaches you that is very clearly pro-shooting, pro-hunting, pro-fur, that's not a good fit for you, because their beliefs, their ethos, their way of being, the way they promote things doesn't align with you, doesn't align with your views, and won't align with your audience. This doesn't mean that either of you are wrong in your beliefs. Just putting that out there, it means that you have different beliefs. And it's really important to recognise that as well. So if you get approached by somebody, and if you don't know them and you start doing a bit of research, and you think, hang on a minute, they're really pro whatever activity, maybe they support some kind of cause that you don't support, don't be persuaded by that. The thing is, we get offered shiny free things, and we can sometimes forget our beliefs and our morals because there's something shiny. I would urge you not to do this. I would really urge you not to do this, because if you are being quite confusing in your messaging that you're putting out on social, that's not going to help your fans, followers, and tribe. And I really think when you are on social with the aim of becoming a really solid influencer, you've got to play for the long game. And taking a quick win on something like this, if it's a brand that just doesn't align with you whatsoever. So if, again, another example, if you are a vegetarian and your content is very pro vegetarian food, vegetarian cooking, vegetarian this, good for you. But it would be really strange for you to align with a really pro hunting, potentially, company, organisation, or someone who is very into producing the best quality meat, and a farmer who is really known for that side of things. Unless, of course, you're looking to kind of move more towards a diet that is more to do with eating meat, and you want to try some meat and you want to look at kind of high welfare standards and things like that, then of course it makes perfect sense. But what I'm trying to say is that don't just jump from one to the other. Think about your fans, your followers, your messaging. And again, you can have some of these things. So maybe you are, let's go vegan, but it's maybe something that you don't promote. Or in that case, it doesn't make such a jump. But I would say still, regardless of whether it's obvious or not, if it goes against your core values, it's going to feel weird for you promoting them. It's going to feel like you're walking through treacle a little bit, and you don't want to be doing that. If you are working with somebody and you want to promote them and do the best job you can, you don't want to feel like you don't want to do it, because not only is that not right for you, it's not right for them, and also I think it's taking the opportunity away from somebody who this might be absolutely bang up their street. I know there's some really random examples there. We've gone vegan, vegetarian, shooting, hunting, and fur. But I was just thinking of issues, particularly in equestrian country, rural, that are these kind of issues that I see over and over again. And that's why I picked on them, not for any reason beyond that. There are loads of issues. You might just not like the way someone runs their company, or you might not like the way that they treat their customers, or you might have had an experience with them before and you thought you weren't treated particularly well. Or, somebody was rude to you, or anything like that. If you don't feel that what they do, how they are, aligns with you, I would really advise you to think really strongly about working with them. The next thing in reasons to say no to a brand is that you wouldn't pay for the product. I'm not saying you should pay for the product, but one thing I say is that often when I'm looking with my brand hat on at people who we might want to work with, the first people we look at are people who have bought the product. Because if someone's bought the product and they've paid their hard-earned money and they are still talking about and promoting it, the chances of them doing a good job when and if we gift them something or work with them in a bigger way is much, much greater. Now, if you get approached by somebody that you would like to buy from, that you've thought about buying from, that you've got a wish list for, that makes sense. If you are approached by a company and you look at it and you think, I would not pay for that, I would not give my money to buy any of that product, to wear any of that product, to eat, whatever, not a good fit. Because when you are an influencer, you are obviously talking about what you love, what you don't love, how stuff fits, how stuff tastes, whatever, depending on the product. But if you've got an undertone of, I wouldn't pay for it, then I think you're doing your following and your integrity actually quite a disservice. And I don't think that's a good call. So if you wouldn't pay for the product, don't consider not working with the brand. It's important. I'm not saying you have to pay for the product, but I'm saying that if it just is not you at all, you don't like whatever about it, it might not feel correct for you to do it. I mean, it might be something that if you're approached by somebody who you don't know and you don't know their product, again, what we said in point 1 is that going to them and saying, look, I don't know much about your brand, I don't know much about your product, and before I would actively kind of promote it, I'd really like to get to know you better. I'd like to maybe try and test something, and that can be a nice way of actually seeing if it is the kind of product you want to promote. But if it turns out that you wouldn't pay for it, you don't really like it, don't do it. The next thing is if you are approached by a brand that you like that ticks all the boxes, and they say that they would like to gift you an item, and it comes with a huge list of what you have to do, conditions that you are not happy with, that's a good reason to say no. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong for a brand to say, if we gift you X, we expect Y. Now, with most of the people I work with, this is usually a very loose arrangement because we want people to be posting stuff they want to post. But we do expect, if they are gifted an item, we do expect it to feature somewhere on their social media at some point. It's very loose. And actually, we find that through doing this, the kind of cream really rises to the top and you see who's actually out there actively posting and promoting you. I don't have a problem with that. If it's an expensive item and a brand saying what we'd really like is a how-to video and a written blog, that's cool too. Whatever the brand is asking for is not necessarily wrong and incorrect. And what you are happy with isn't exactly wrong or incorrect, but you need to make sure they align. So if you're given a hoof pick, or you're given a chocolate bar, or you're given a bottle of water, and somebody wants a blog, a video, a post a week, Instagram stories each day for 6 months, that's a lot of content for a bottle of water. I'm being extreme. And actually, is that worth your amount of time? Because if the bottle of water costs you £1 and you're having to give what would be hundreds and hundreds of pounds worth of work, is it worth it? Now, it might be. You might really like that bottle of water and you might want to work with them on a longer term basis, and there might be scope to work together in a longer term way if you do this. But if you look and you think, well, actually, that's going to take me hours and hours and hours and hours, and the product's going to cost me £1 to buy, then that's crazy. If that's the case and you get a load of conditions around a gift and you think, actually, this isn't in the same league, the product's worth a tenner and it's hundreds of pounds worth of content or thousands of pounds worth of content. But equally, if you have a product that's worth hundreds and you're asked for hundreds of pounds worth of content, potentially in terms of, if a vlog's got a value, if a blog's got a value, if a post's got a value, all of these things, then you can think about it and think about whether it's worth the effort and how long it's going to take you to create that content. If you get a list of conditions that you're like, I'm not good with this, speak to them. Explain you're not happy. Explain what you feel is reasonable. Explain what you're happy to do. But also be prepared that that might not fit what they need. But the best thing to do would be to get into a discussion about it and just say, look, I'm happy to do this, this and this for this product. Hopefully that'll work with you. Also, I mean, if the conditions here, one thing I want to say here, which I've not seen, but I just want to say that when you get gifted an item and when you're paid to promote something, you need to declare that. And if you're ever asked as an ambassador not to do that, really think hard about that. There are guidelines from the ASA, which I will put in the show notes, that you need to. It is a must that you declare when you are being gifted something to promote, when you are being paid to promote. It's really, really important. So if you are ever asked not to declare that to me would be like a flashing beacon. I'm sure no brand listening to this would ever do that. I've not seen it done, but it's something that I wouldn't be surprised at if happens, because people do think that if you are posting, organically and naturally and not saying it's been gifted, that you might get more, not more reach necessarily, but it might be seen in a more favourable light. It might be, but it's wrong. If you've been given it, if you've been gifted it, if you've been paid to promote it, say. You need to say. Because it's important. You're misleading your audience, and that's not cool. Your audience are worth more than that, and so are you. Dismounts from Smaller Horse. So yeah, if you don't have the conditions of the gift, speak to them, but be prepared to walk away as well. Don't forget that as an influencer, your time has a value, your content has a value, and I think it's really important to be very giving and to be supportive of the brand, but there has to be some tally between the two, and it's really important to keep that in mind. And we are now on number 5. Sorry, I've done myself a little list, which is unusual for me, and I've kind of squidged 2 points in the last point. So the next one is conflicts of interest. So this is usually if you work with a product already, if you work with a brand already, and they have a product, let's say they make, look around the office, boots. Everyone's office has got boots in, right? Let's say they make boots and you're actively promoting their boots, and another company comes along and wants you to promote their boots. Now, depending on the arrangement you have with company 1, we all need more than one pair of boots. I've got quite a lot of pairs of boots, actually. It might be fine. You might believe they're a different kind of boot, they're for a different purpose. Or you might think that actually you like company A's boots, but you like company B's boots, and you don't have any kind of agreement or contract or anything like that with company A, then fair enough. But if you do have some kind of agreement, commitment to company A, or you feel like you have that, and you are not sure about it, whether it's a conflict of interest or not, speak to them. Speak to the brand about it if you are unsure. If you're sure, go for it. If you're sure either way, make that decision. But if you're not sure, it's worth dropping them a message just to say, look, I've been approached by another brand who do boots. Let's just stick with boots. How do you feel about me working with them? Because I know we work together and I wouldn't want it to compromise any future collaborations we do. It might be that company A is clamping down on collaborations or not doing anymore. Or it might be that they have you in mind for something really cool in the future because you've been so supportive and exclusive to them. So just opening up that conversation, really, really important. And last but not least, we have got 6 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. This shouldn't be this difficult. This is a problem when you use a post-it note because they're not that big and you have to crunch up your ideas in the corner. But anyway, last but not least, point 6 of 6 reasons to say no to a brand is that your audience would hate it. So you know your audience, and the reason that brands approach you is hopefully because they realise that your audience would be their audience, or a lot of your audience would be, and they would get excited about what you were doing and they would relate to it. And if you get approached by something completely left field and think, hang on a minute, my audience would hate that, say no. When you have put the time and the energy in to develop a following, to put your content out on social media each day, don't do anything that's going to compromise them. Even if it kind of fits with you, but it's not an area of yourself that you share, really think about whether you're going to talk about that. If your audience are going to hate it, it's not going to help you. Unless you're having a complete change of direction, you're going from one thing to another because actually your beliefs and your views and everything else has changed, then by all means. But if you are looking to continue to nurture and grow and develop your audience, make sure they're not going to hate the brand you're going to work with, because some brands can really, really stir up emotions in people. And I'm not saying you can't cater for everybody. There's always likely to be someone who's not happy. But if the majority of people you work with, you know it's going to really grind their gears and you're not good with that, then don't do it. Of course, there are lots more reasons why not to work with a brand. I've just pulled out 6. But I think there's a really good quote from, I think it's Marie Forleo. It definitely is, actually. She's got the most amazing book called Everything is Figureoutable, easy for me to say. It's really, really good. And she's got this, I'm going to completely butcher this now. So hold tight. If you haven't read the book, read the book. She's also got some really good podcast interviews with Amy Porterfield, Jenna Kutcher and Rachel Hollis that I've heard. I'm just thinking, I'm sure there was 3. She's got this thing that if you don't know what to do, if you can kind of quiet your mind and really think on it, your body will actually have a reaction. And I've done this and it works. She explains it much better. As I said, I'm butchering it. But I think it's kind of like gut feeling and then some. So, if you think about something and you feel like a little bit sick, that's probably not a good indication. If you think about something and feel a little bit excited or kind of like butterflies excited, that might be a positive indication. So if your gut feeling is going, no, this is not good, think about why it's saying that. Don't just ignore it. Obviously, we can look at the data, we can write lists, we can do all of this, but sometimes there's just that niggling feeling that it's not quite right for you. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to not do it. It doesn't mean that you should do it. But what it does mean is that perhaps you need to think about it. And also, you don't actually need a reason to say no to a brand. If you are crazy busy and you just can't fit it in and you don't think you're going to be able to do it justice and you don't want to compromise a potential future working relationship, explain that and say no. There's nothing wrong with speaking to a brand and explaining your difficulties, worries, concerns, all of the above, because then, you might be able to work with them in the future. Even if it's not right for now, you might be able to work with them in the future. Or you might be able to work with them in a different project or in a different way. So don't burn your bridges, but be honest with them, because as much as you want to do the right thing for them, they will have a number of people probably that they would like to work with and they're looking at. And by saying yes to something you don't want to do, by saying yes to something and delivering something substandard, it won't help them and it certainly won't help you. So don't be afraid to say no to brands, even if it's not a no forever, if it's just a no for now. Just be honest, upfront, get the communication going, get talking. It's so important to communicate. So there we go. 6, well, more than 6. A number of reasons not to work with a brand, to say no to a brand. I hope you've enjoyed this one. I would love you to take a picture of yourself listening or screenshot the episode on your phone or device and share to Instagram stories tagging me. Don't forget as well, if you are a brand and you want to do more with riders and develop your social media following, or you are indeed an influencer who wants to grow, I have my Small and Supercharged Mastermind group, which is my membership group, which is amazing. Just blow its own trumpet there, but I have the most incredible community in there of amazing, lovely equestrian and rural business people and bloggers and influencers in there. And we do a monthly masterclass on a specific subject. We do weekly live sessions. We have free stock images to use each month from the incredible Sophie Callahan. We have a social media critique of one member each month. There's loads going in there for a bargain price of £40 a month. So I'm going to pop the link to that in the show notes, but also if you go to my website, riafreemanpr.co.uk, across the menu bar there is Small and Supercharged Mastermind, and it's all in there, but feel free to DM me with any information. Thanks so much for listening, and we will catch up next week. Have a great week.